It is my honor to introduce to you our keynote speaker from the Monterey County District 2 Supervisor Glenn Church. Please join me in welcoming our very welcome guest.
Good morning. This is really great. I've heard of this. The school has done this for a long time. I didn't have it in my high school. I went to Community High. I live out here because we didn't have, North County hasn't quite developed and going with the high school quite at that point. It was going to be a couple years later. But I just really impressed with everybody and the way this is all organized. And I'm kind of hoping today to talk a little bit about how really special it is for what you're doing here, what we do in this state, what we do in this country, and how that hasn't always been the case, and how it isn't always the case everywhere around the world. But this is really what you're doing, is democracy in action. It's what the Bill of Rights is about. It's organizing, speaking, speech, freedom of speech, First Amendment rights, all these kind of things. And then you're going to vote afterwards. And there's nothing more democratic in the whole process than that. And this is, as I say, I wish all high schools were doing something along this line. And I'm kind of talking about something here. We're actually coming up on a real important historical anniversary. I don't really see anything about it and brought up too much, but next week on the 19th is the 250th anniversary of actually the Battle of Lexington and Concord, which kind of started the whole American Revolution. And when you think of what came out of that, that's what got the Constitution going, that's what got people to get in, to get the First Amendment rights, to get all these special things that we have here, you're doing today, people do out into the community. And this is, really not something that really should be forgotten out of that. What's really kind of ironic is all those colonists that were fighting for that, they were actually probably the freest people in the world at that point anyway. So, you know what we have gone through, and this is what really makes it so important that we continue to go forward, is not everybody always had the right to vote. You can go back to this beginning of this country here, and it was just white males who had property. That's all. It was a few percentage. And I'm not a big fan of Andrew Jackson, really, because he really mistreated the Cherokee and ignored the Constitution. But what he did is he expanded that right. And pretty soon, it wasn't just property owners. It was still just white males, but it was expanded, and more people voted. And then we abolished slavery. And then you had African American males. And then 100 years ago, women got the right to vote. And why did that take so long, huh? I mean, that should have been early on. A few years after that, there was, in 1924, I think it was called the Indian Citizenship Act, and it allowed Native Americans anywhere in the country to have the right. 1970s, the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18. 21 to 18. And that was done because people that were 18 and 19 and 20 were dying in the Vietnam War. And it was said, why, if you're going to die in a war, maybe you should have a right to vote. And that was, I think, really a big step. And that was really organized by a lot of people like you. Got up and organized and protested and made a difference, and had their voice heard. That doesn't mean that we've stopped here. Heck, I don't know, maybe the voting age needs to go down to 16. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But you guys are all engaged. You know what's going on. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about other places in the world, a little bit where people haven't always had the rights to vote and to speak and to assemble. Before I became a county supervisor, and I'll go in a little bit with exactly what that means and how that is relevant. But before I go into that, I want to talk a little bit about what I did a long time ago. I was on the board of directors of an organization called Amnesty International USA. Amnesty International is the largest human rights organization in the world. And the U.S., the national section, is the largest section of that. It's about helping, standing up for people who got imprisoned because they were speaking, because they were assembling, they were opposing some government somewhere. And I had a chance to meet a lot of people in there. People who were imprisoned in places like the Soviet Union, or this brutal government that was in Cambodia at one time called the Khmer Rouge, or in Syria, where the Assad family was just kicked out after about 50 or 60 years of power. So I'll give a couple examples of a couple of people that I knew, and you can find them on Wikipedia if you want to see something more about them. One of them was a woman named Jeanette Sagan. She was Italian. She was part of the Italian resistance in World War II. Her parents were killed by Mussolini's Black Brigades, and she continued opposing this. She would curry messages for the Italian resistance, get letterheads that she would slip out from official offices so that people could leave Italy who were in danger and go to neutral Switzerland. But basically, she got caught in the waning days of World War II. They imprisoned her, they beat her, they tortured her, mistreated her. They set up a date when she was going to be executed. And one day, the guards came in and threw a loaf of bread inside. She tore it open, and it said "coraggio," which is courage in Italian. And that gave her some hope. Wow, there's somebody out there that knows and listening. There's some hope. But the execution day approached. Day before, some German soldiers came in, German officers, and said, "We're going to take this prisoner." She's a small woman. She's only 5 foot tall, no fireball though. And they took her, and she would recount saying, I just looked outside. I thought for the last time, it's the last time I'm going to see the sky or anything. And they start driving down the road, and these German officers, they started taking off their uniforms. They were members of the Italian resistance, and that's how she got saved. So she, decided, I'm going to dedicate my life to this. This is important. Everybody has a right just to express themselves. The other case is a guy from China named Harry Wu. Wu is his real name, but there's some things came up in Harry's life. There were kind of some controversial things, but it's not as controversial. It's not as nothing but fact is what happened to him earlier in his life. And so he grew up in a well-to-do family in China, and then there was a communist revolution and they took over. He still got to go to college. Mid-1950s, he was going to college, and Mao did this campaign called the 100 Flowers campaign. It was going to be, hey, you can criticize this government. It's going to be okay. I want to hear what you have to say. Harry said a few tepid things in criticism. And then, after some time had passed, Mao says, we're shutting down the 100 Flowers campaign. Now we know who the real traitors are. And a few years after that, he was going to be arrested. Over 19 years, he was in 12 different prison camps, just starving. I mean, if you look on Wikipedia, you'll see his story. He was digging into rats' nests, trying to get pieces of grain and beans so he could eat to keep from starving. And all he did was just do a little bit of criticism. Finally got out, came to the United States. I had a real opportunity to go around with him back in, I think it was the 1990s, and talk to a lot of high schools and about his story. And I realized that both he and Janetta, they were real fighters. They're people that stood up there, took chances for the people in their country could have a chance. And, you know, that's the great beauty we've had. That fight has been, that basic fight has been done a long time ago, and now we're not just living the legacy of what happened there a long time ago. We're living the legacy of people like Janetta and Harry. So, you know, that's really what I kind of wanted to put across. And that's where, you know, this may seem, you know, you're just doing this at the school level, but this is really important. This is part of it. This is part of just really being engaged. And it's, you know, you gotta have passion. You gotta stand up for what you want, but you make a difference. And on the great world outside, you'll make a difference. So, just a little bit about me, what the county supervisor does, and how that relates to you as you go out of high school into the world. I ran a 3 years ago. I had a real great opportunity. My dad was a county supervisor, and so I had a chance to learn, to see what that job does, the importance it can do. I said I was never going to do this, but frankly, I got kind of ticked off with the county and decided to run. And I ended up knocking on about 10,000 doors out here in North County. I'm sure I knocked on some of the doors that you folks live in too. And I was able to win. I guess to describe what a county supervisor really does is, you know that there's three branches of government. It's, you know, the executive, the legislative, the judicial. And that's true with Congress, the President, the Supreme Court. It's true at the state level. And the county is kind of like that too, but the supervisors will sort of have all that same three jobs. Legislative, we create laws, which are ordinances. We oversee the county departments as an executive position, and we even kind of have a little judicial role in there as quasi-judicial, as if somebody has a land use matter and something they want to do on their property, build a housing complex or an industrial place or somewhere, and it gets turned down or it gets approved and somebody wants to appeal it, we're the body that it goes to. And when there's 5 supervisors. I represent this area all the way to North Salinas and all the way to Pajaro and Aromas. But at the county level, this is where it's really important. If you vote for president, when people vote for president, you get 80% turnout. But you have 150 million people voting. You get down to the local level, your vote really makes a difference. There were, I went through 2 elections to get elected. The first election, there was just 10,000 people who voted. There's only about 27% turnout. I made a run on. 2 of my opponents was just separated by 18 votes. 18 votes. Every vote counted in that case. And that's what's so really important, is every vote counts. And what happens at a county, like for the Board of Supervisors overseas, is really personal, because we administer a lot of different things. If it's food stamps from social services or care for the elderly programs. In the health department, you ever go into restaurants and you see a sign up there that says this restaurant's been inspected? That's done by the county. When stray animals are out there, there's animal services. Those animals are picked up, taken care of, and taken down to Salinas. Vaccinations, there's a whole lot of health things around. There's safety, drinking water programs. It's all basic stuff. And then, of course, the county handles the sheriff's department. It's the roads. Now, the roads could be a whole lot better. I agree with anybody on that. But the county handles the roads. So all these things here, just those basic individual things. And that's why you should really be really thinking about making sure that when you do decide to go and register to vote, that you vote locally. So I just kind of want to wrap things up for you here, but I just really want to emphasize that what you're doing today isn't just a school exercise, it's a real thing. This is where it starts. You can't change the world all at once. But your presence, your questions, your actions, they all really make a difference. They all matter. You're the future. You're the present. You have that power. And as you go through life, don't forget it. Use it. You see something wrong, make your voice heard. Not everybody everywhere at all their time have been able to do that, but you can. What you just have to do is you just have to show up, and your folks are showing up today. Because you're here because you care about something. There's the other things you care about. And the rest of us out there, as I said, you're the future. We need you for tomorrow. Thank you. If anybody has any questions?
Yeah, we already answered that. Raise your hand if you have a question. Ariana, come around to the mic.
No, maybe I answered everybody's questions.
Oh, not even one.
Oh, there we are.
What were some of the things that you were involved in high school?
You know, unfortunately, high school was kind of a dead hole for me. I wasn't involved in too much, a little bit with some sports and to the track and field a little bit. But the problem is when I was in high school in the 70s, I lived out here. But we all went to school in Salinas, at North High, Alice South, and in Salinas High. And we get split around to different schools. Your neighbor right next door could go into a different one. So you didn't always have that chance to those old friendships and keep them going. And the new ones, it's like all the kids that were in Salinas. They hung together and knew where to go. And here I'm sitting out here over in Elkhorn and just sort of out of it. And it was really difficult to engage. So I can't say I didn't do as much as I would like.
If there's someone here who wants to get involved in politics, what are the steps they should take?
First thing you do is make sure you register to vote when you're 18. And find your passion. What do you care about? You care about what happens with animals? You care about what happens, maybe you're tired of that pothole in front of your road. I will tell you, if you want to get engaged into things, you should go to local meetings, get involved locally, see what's happening, keep aware, look for something that's going on. But you can also contact my office. We do appointments for all kinds of things on committees that you can be involved in and put your voice into. So reach out to that. Or if you have a particular particularly if you're a Republican or a Democrat or some other, like, get involved with that party. That's a good place to start too.
What's your biggest inspiration?
My basic inspiration?
Yeah.
My greatest inspiration. Wow. You know, I'd have to say it really was my dad, because between the ages of 5 and 17, he was a county supervisor. And I just thought it was like a job my dad did. I knew it was important. Like, he shared things with me, he took me to meetings. Kind of pretty nerdy, frankly, to go to some of those meetings at that age. But he would share and talk to me. And he continued to do that long after. We continued to exchange up until we died of thoughts and ideas. And I could just see that, yes, change happens slow, but it can happen. And I could see the good things that he did.
Can you share a significant challenge you faced and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I can give you a couple challenges. One I'm still facing. So I got elected 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. 2 months after I was in office, we had these horrible rains in the community of Poplar flooded badly. 3,000 people the levee broke, and 3,000 people were displaced. People were just angry at the county because the county neglected them, and they were right. The county had neglected them for a long time. I mean, I had people, I'd say I'm only in 2 months, and I people come up to me and say, "You've never done anything for us over the years." Well, that's true. I was only here for 2 months, but we made a real effort. I mean, a real effort to engage, and there's some $20 million that came down from the state to spend in that community. And we held meetings with that community. I think we had 150 people coming out constantly, or 9 or 10 meetings. They were coming out, they were just wanting to say, this is where we like this bit, this is where we like this bit. And now, I go out there and people greet me warmly, because the most important thing to do is you let people have control of their lives, and to let people decide how we want to spend this $20 million. It wasn't coming from the top, it was coming from the bottom. And that's where everything should always be, and democracy should always be. The other challenge that happened right now is right over here, this plant, that's a moss land plant that caught on fire. It's going to be an ongoing challenge, because it's basically, it's a public utility, it's a power plant, and those are basically run by the state, not by the county. But the fact is, you all saw that, the smoke that came out of that. You were some in the pathway of it, I was in the pathway of it, where it came down. There's a lot of things we don't know. There's a lot of things we got to learn pretty soon, so that's a real ongoing challenge.